Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Dylan, and today I wanted to share my experience dealing with severe acne and oily skin. I want to provide a little case study detailing step by step what I did, the different remedies I tried, what worked, what didn't, and in the end, what the exact root cause of my own unique case of acne was. My cause was pretty unconventional and not really discussed when it comes to mentions about acne or skin problems or just modern day health issues. So I figured it would be awesome if I could bring it to light and hopefully help others out there in the process dealing with these ailments, because I know how difficult it can be and how hopeless it can feel at times. So stick with me. I'm excited to share my journey with you, and let's get to it. So my experience with acne first started around the age of 9 or 10 years old. I would mostly get a pimple occasionally, maybe weekly, bi-weekly on my chin line. Nothing too severe, mostly just a nuisance. But as I got older, around the age of puberty, I'd say 13, 14 years old, my skin got increasingly oily, and consequently I would start getting acne on my forehead, my cheeks, my nose, my chin, everywhere. And at that point, I resorted to trying every single over-the-counter product you can think of, moisturizers, cleansers, to no avail, obviously. And at that point, I resorted to going to the doctor, where I was then prescribed antibiotics. I believe I was given azithromycin, which is pretty conventional to use with acne, and to no avail. At that point, I then went on to Accutane, as most people dealing with severe acne do at some point or another. I took, I believe it was 3 full courses of Accutane, 30, 40 milligrams a day for 6 months. I believe the conventional course is anywhere from 4 to 9 months. And following each course of Accutane, my skin was good. It cleared up within a couple of weeks of being on Accutane. Actually, I responded very well. But following the end of my Accutane course, 3, 4 months afterwards, 5 months sometimes, my skin would get increasingly oily, and it would just return to its normal state. I would get oily skin, I would get pimples, acne, and I'd be back to square one essentially. At that point, I was pretty hopeless and desperate for anything, so I then resorted to long-term low-dose Accutane, where I was taking one 40 milligram pill weekly, and I would take this every Sunday, and it would just enabled me to live a normal life where I didn't have to worry about dealing with severe acne. My skin was still pretty oily, but at least I could go out in public and kind of enjoy life to an extent. I remained on this regimen of long-term low-dose Accutane indefinitely from around the age of 18 up until 20 years old. And at this point, I kind of knew I had to figure something out, as I didn't want to remain on a toxic pharmaceutical such as Accutane. I don't think anyone does for the rest of my life, simply to have clear skin, something which everyone should have naturally. And it was at this point that I started doing some in-depth research, some critical thinking, really listening to my body. And I figured out how to cure my acne simply using vitamins and minerals. Something so simple, but actually so complex. My stepping stone to clear skin started on none other than the acne.org forums. I'm sure any of you suffering from acne at one point or another have ventured there. And it was here that I came across a forum post which kind of made the connection between something called candida or candida albicans and acne. For those of you who aren't familiar, candida is what causes a white tongue after taking antibiotics, or if you have a weakened immune system for whatever reason, also commonly known as thrush, or in women it can also cause yeast infections. So besides making this connection between candida and acne, this forum post provided a at-home test that individuals could complete to help determine whether they might be suffering from candida. And I'll put that test on the screen right now. So what it entailed was essentially you have a cup of water at your bedside table. First thing in the morning, you spit in this cup of water, and depending what your spit does in this cup of water, it helps you determine whether or whether not you might be suffering from candida. Lo and behold, I did this test, and based on my results, it kind of gave me the impression that I might be suffering from candida, which then led me down the next stage of my journey and of my research to clear skin. Now, in order to kind of strengthen the connection between candida and acne, I just want to pull up a quick article and read it to you. It states here, you got acne, a candida overgrowth in your gut could be connected. Acne and candida share many of the same causes, and a yeast overgrowth can cause chronic inflammation that could be contributing to your acne. It goes on to state that your skin is your body's largest organ, and the health of your skin is often a reflection of the foods, medicines, and other substances that you put into your body. And this is what dermatologists mean when they refer to the gut-skin connection. Now, after finding a variety of different articles and different research on this subject between candida and acne, it led me to the belief that this could potentially be my cause, and I potentially found a cure through using antifungals, because obviously candida is a fungus. In order to kill a fungus, you need to use antifungals. So I tried a variety of different natural antifungals, such as olive leaf extract, berberine, oregano oil, in combination with a candida diet. So what a candida diet is, it essentially eliminates simple sugars from the diet, since this is what candida feeds on. So no fruit, no candy, no breads, etc. And it's essentially just vegetables and meat, which is a very hard diet, but I was just determined to try whatever. I wanted to have clear skin and do whatever to get it. So I followed this regimen of antifungals in combination with this diet, and I actually noticed my skin would clear up significantly. I didn't have pimples. My skin was a little bit oily, and unfortunately, though, I couldn't eat whatever foods I wanted to eat, or else I would break out. And another thing I noticed, unfortunately, as well, after using these antifungals for a period of maybe 2-3 weeks each, sometimes a month if I was lucky, they would gradually lose their efficiency. So I would use one at a time, and then I'd notice my acne would gradually start coming back, and I'd have to move on to another one. And eventually I ran out of antifungals to use, and this was very confusing to me, very, very disheartening, and it led me to the belief that my acne it potentially is caused by candida, but there's also something else enabling this candida to thrive within my body, and my body's not able to handle it like a normal body would and get rid of this fungal infection. At this point, I knew I had acne. I knew it wouldn't go away. And I also knew that potentially I had a candida infection, which was causing this acne, but this candida infection would not go away either. So as I stated, this led me down researching what could potentially be causing candida. Now, I want to read from a quick article to kind of provide some background information on how I discovered what was causing my candida in the end. So it states here, essential heavy metals versus toxic heavy metals. It is normal to find heavy metals in the body. Heavy metals such as iron and zinc promote good health and support many body functions, while others such as arsenic, cadmium, lead, and mercury are very toxic and can cause or contribute to many health problems. And the problem with heavy metals starts when they accumulate in the body to a point that they damage it, as the body is not designed and in many cases can't eliminate these toxic metals effectively. And what this means is that without specific heavy metal detox treatment, these toxic heavy metals will stay in your body and keep creating problems. Now, just to back this up even further, I want to read from a quick article which details some of the health issues related with heavy metal toxicity. So it states here some of the health issues related with heavy metal toxicity: tremors, memory loss, speech, hearing, or vision issues, inability to concentrate, brain fog, loss of coordination, and the most important part here that I want to highlight, obviously, is candida or yeast infection issues. So making this connection with hours of research, there seems to be a potential connection between candida albicans and now toxic heavy metals, which led me down trying to figure out now if I have some kind of heavy metal toxicity. At this stage in my journey, I now had another problem. On top of having acne, on top of having a potential fungal infection, I knew I now potentially was toxic in a heavy metal of some sort, which led me to trying to test myself for heavy metal toxicity. And I did this with a hair mineral analysis. So you get these from a naturopathic doctor, and what they are is a test where you just submit a sample of your hair. It goes to a laboratory, and they test it for the different minerals or metals being excreted from your tissues. So you get a little baggie with a paper scale, You set up this paper scale, you cut some hair from the back of your head, uncontaminated hair, it's cleaned, it's washed, etc. You place this hair on this paper scale, and once this scale tips down, you know you have a sufficient volume of hair, and you stick it in this little baggie and send it off to the laboratory. So I did this test, and once my test came back, I found out some interesting things which I will now share with you via my test results. Now, I completed my first hair mineral analysis on September 30th, 2011, and according to my results here, you'll see that I had elevated aluminum levels at a level of 40 with a reference range of below 7. In addition, I had elevated calcium levels, elevated copper levels, and elevated magnesium levels. Now, to make things short, I determined which specific toxic heavy metal was causing my candida after a lot of trial and error and a lot of just hours of research. And lo and behold, I found out it was copper. And I'm just going to pull up a few articles to establish that connection between copper and candida infection. So you'll see here the first article I want to pull up. It states that copper is an example of a heavy metal that's a nutrient at low concentrations but extremely toxic at higher levels. In addition, this next article states that high levels of biounavailable copper can lead to undermethylation by way of poor gut health. Copper is a natural antifungal and helps control candida. However, when candida becomes biounavailable, which it is when it's at toxic levels within the body, its ability to control candida falters and candida is then allowed to flourish. So now I had made significant leeway in my path to clear skin and optimal health. I had acne, I had severe acne. It seemed to be caused by candida or a fungal infection, and that fungal infection now potentially is caused by a toxic accumulation of heavy metals in my body, and that most likely seems to be copper at this point. So my next step was to figure out a way to chelate or detox this excess heavy metal out of my body's tissues. Chelating or removing heavy metals from the body is not easy. What I did was I took a variety of different copper antagonists. For those of you who aren't familiar, an antagonist blocks the action of another thing. So in the case of copper, an antagonist would be zinc and vice versa. I'm sure any of you who have taken zinc, you've seen on the bottle or heard that high doses of zinc put you at risk of a copper deficiency. So I would take zinc, I would take molybdenum, I would take vitamin C, and I would take vitamin B6, as these things are proven to antagonize the action of copper or remove it from the body. And in addition, I would support my body's liver with a variety of different supplements, including vitamin C. Because when you're detoxing a heavy metal out of your body, you want to support your liver because your liver processes all these different toxins and chemicals that are removed from your body on a daily basis. So as I was chelating or detoxing copper out of my body, I noticed a few interesting things. First, on the first few tests after I started my detox regimen, I actually noticed an increase on each of my test results in the amount of copper. And you might be thinking this is a bad thing, but it's actually a good thing because it indicates your detox regimen is working and your body is extracting and removing more copper out of your body and releasing it through the tissues. In addition, I also noticed whatever supplements I was taking in large quantities, such as molybdenum or zinc, these were accurately reflected in each of my subsequent test results. So I took it as a reputable sign that these hair analysis did in fact work. And I'm just going to read here my second test. So I took this second test here on April 14th, 2012. And you'll notice my copper level went up to 220. And on June 24th, 2013, it went up to 600, which is pretty crazy when the reference range is below 30. And then on April 26th, 2014, I had a slight decrease to 360. And you'll notice here I had a significantly higher level of molybdenum. As I mentioned earlier, I was taking molybdenum now as a daily part of my regimen. And on June 6, 2015, you'll notice my toxic levels of mercury, lead, aluminum, etc. have all come down significantly. And as I had mentioned earlier, I actually started avoiding aluminum in cooking, like aluminum foil, aluminum in deodorant, because as many of you know, it's not good to have aluminum in your body. You want to avoid it as much as possible. And as you can see, this was accurately reflected in this particular test result in all of the subsequent ones after that. And you'll notice on this test, my hair analysis showed a copper level now of 100, which is actually the lowest it had ever been. And then on October 24th, 2017, my copper level went down to 68. And then on March 13th, 2018, a copper level of 56. And then finally, my last test result from July 21st, 2019, I was right at 30, which is crazy, going from as high of a level as 600 at one point and now down to 30. And at this point, my skin was clear. I would get an occasional breakout, nothing severe, just like a normal pimple. And yeah, just over the course of these years of detoxing, I noticed a gradual improvement in my skin, in my health, and I could tell that this was working. And I no longer have to take any kind of daily regimen for my skin for anything. I'll occasionally take a copper-free multivitamin just to just kind of maintain that, just in case I have some kind of problem detoxing copper out of my body or staying within a normal range of copper levels. But besides that, like I have no problems anymore, and it's just remarkable, really, to me that something like this is what cured severe acne, which was caused by inflammation from candida infection, which was caused by a copper toxicity. It's just crazy to me that this is not more commonly discussed within medicine, unfortunately. Now, I just want to give a special shout out to two supplements which helped me pretty significantly. And number one is molybdenum. Molybdenum cleared up my skin completely if I took it before a meal. And I found out later on that's actually because it helps convert a toxin that candida produces into a more efficiently excreted toxin, thereby reducing the level of inflammation caused by candida. And I'm just going to pull up an article here just to back that up. So it says how molybdenum is able to help with candida. And it says the way that molybdenum is able to help with the candida relief is because it can convert acetaldehyde into acetic acid. Just like any other toxin, the body is able to excrete acetic acid without too much problem. And the second supplement is actually vitamin D. And I found this significant. I wanted to mention this actually because I noticed a lot of people online claiming that vitamin D helps or cures or improves their acne. And the reason that is, I believe, is because vitamin D has strong anti-inflammatory properties. And I took vitamin D for a period of maybe 3 weeks, and then it kind of wore off just like the antifungals would. But as I mentioned, I think this is because vitamin D is very anti-inflammatory. And I'm just going to pull up an article as well just to back that up. And it states here the vitamin D inflammation connection. So just how are vitamin D and inflammation connected? Lots of ways. Vitamin D helps you modulate the body's immune system, which we know actually creates inflammation to protect you. But this system often goes a bit haywire. Vitamin D can also regulate parts of the body with the job of getting rid of inflammation. And vitamin D keeps your pro-inflammatory cells from getting out of control. So if you are suffering from candida or acne or some other kind of ailment, I do recommend, it doesn't hurt to try out some molybdenum or some vitamin D just to see if it does help your condition, due to what I personally experienced while using these supplements. Now, I've always wondered how the hell I became toxic in copper to begin with. And the conclusion I came with is, when I was younger, I lived in an older house for a couple years, and I believe it actually ran on copper piping. So that copper probably leached into the water that I was drinking or bathing in and being exposed to on a daily basis. And in addition, my diet when I was a child growing up was not superb. I was eating a lot of processed foods. I was not getting a lot of meat in my diet, therefore not a lot of zinc, which probably also led up to this copper being built up in my body to a toxic level. And around the time that I had moved out to this older house that ran on copper piping, not too long after that is actually when I started experiencing these pimples on my chin, and then it gradually turned into very oily skin and severe acne. And as I mentioned, that was around the age of 9 or 10 years old is when I first experienced this, and I think I moved out to this house around the age of 8 years old. So that was the kind of connection I made, and the most plausible explanation as to how I became copper toxic to begin with. Now, unfortunately, the pharmaceutical industry and the medical industry is focused more so on treating symptoms and profiting from that, as opposed to actually finding the root cause of different ailments, which is why I believe things like copper toxicity are not commonly discussed among modern medicine and among the general public, unfortunately. And whether or not you are suffering from, candida or some kind of metal toxicity that is causing your acne or skin problem or other ailments, I hope that my video can just provide you some guidance and some insight into thinking critically about your health and not just relying on, modern medicine to just act as a band-aid. Because if I had just stayed on Accutane for the rest of my life, who knows where I would be right now. My health would be, pathetic. I wouldn't want to be, as I mentioned earlier, on a toxic pharmaceutical for the rest of my life just to maintain clear skin, and no one should have to. So I wanted to make this video just to provide some value and some insight into thinking critically and looking at your health from a different perspective, and just seeing that there is a way to solve whatever you're suffering from, because I know how difficult it is and how hopeless you can feel at times. I want to thank you very much for taking the time to listen to my story, and I hope that you got some value. And I also know that we all know at least one person suffering from some kind of ailment, whether that's acne or some sort of skin problem or migraines or chronic fatigue. So if you think that they could benefit from the information I shared in this video, it would be awesome if you could share this with them. And in addition, if you yourself got value, if you could hit that like button and hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with all my future content. Thank you so much.